So, good day to everyone. Today, I shall be discussing to you about monitoring and repairing communication gaps. So, as you can read there, we have the following objectives. Identify when communication gap occur, monitor and repair communication gaps, as well as perform communicative tasks if these are possible. So, communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. In business organization, maintaining effective communication is of great value and importance as it leads to create the desired effect or the required action. So, there should always be an effective communication in order for an effective response to occur. So it is as much important to bridge the communication gap between employees so as it is to maintain effective communication in the workplace. So, tong mga communication gap na to, it is very important also to identify when do they occur and why do they occur in order for us to address all these communication gaps. So, I will discuss to you what is communication gap. Communication gap, this is when the meaning intended by the speaker or the sender is not what is understood by the recipient. Nangyayari ito the moment na kung ano yung message or information na gustong i-convey ni speaker ay hindi yun yung natatanggap nung sender. Again, this occurs the moment na yung gustong ipabatid ng speaker ay hindi yun yung nakarating doon kay receiver. As stated above, there might be several reasons for communication gap. Some communication gaps might be technological in nature and some might arise due to personal problems or personality. So, hindi natin natatanggap or nare-receive yung actual na message ng speaker. Now, when does communication gap occur? When you talk about when does, so in what situation does communication gap occur? The first factor here is fear. How is this a factor? Fear. There is a communication gap when a speaker is engaged in communication with others who has higher position. Say for example, si staff nakikipag-usap siya doon sa executives. So subordinates may also feel fear in speaking with their bosses or superiors. Since they develop the sense of fear, they can pay attention properly to what is being communicated. Say for example, first time na mag-usap si trainee at si executive, syempre nandun yung kanyang fear. Especially kapag dun sa pagsasalita niya parang there is terror sa kanyang voice. Syempre makakaramdam ng takot ngayon itong nakikipag-usap. At yung takot na yun magsisilbi siyang factor para magkaroon ng communication gap. The moment kasi that you are emotionally unstable, meron kang anxiety, parang ganun, you will not receive the wholesome message or yung kabuuan ng information na sinasabi sa'yo. Next factor, we have mistrust. If there is mistrust between two speakers or groups, communication gap emerges because either of them does not either want to convey proper message or does not convey the message at all. So when you say mistrust, it's the absence of trust, of course. The moment there is mistrust between two communicating teams or groups or individuals, pwedeng hindi magsasalita ng katotohanan yung isa or pwedeng hindi maniniwala yung isa na totoo yung message or information na kino-convey. That way, of course, there is no acceptance of information. Next, body language and tone. Improper body language or tone not only creates communication gaps, but it also leads to aggrieved feelings. As a result of this, there develops an unhealthy competition between employees. So, nagkakos din ng communication gap yung improper use of body language. So as we have discussed before, there is an appropriate body language or gesture for every information that is being conveyed. So kailangang magka-match or how do you call this one? Pareho yung kino-convey mong information doon sa signal na ipinapakita ng katawan mo or ng kamay mo, as well as your facial expression. Next, maintaining an attitude of utter disgust or hatred. This attitude is bad for speakers. What could happen in such situation is that this sort of attitude reflects in words, leading to dirty conversations among participants of the communications. Especially if you are talking to professionals already, and then nakasayan-nayan na ng mga to, yung mga professionals, whenever they feel negative about something, they express it in a positive way. Pero nagkakaroon po ng communication gap the moment na if you feel something negative, if you feel disgusted, discouraged, or embarrassed, kailangan you express it in a positive way or in a proper manner. Hindi yung dahil na-hurt ka, dahil na insult ka, sasabihin mo na lang siya in such a way na gusto mong i-express. So, hindi po ganon yun. Kailangan, if you feel untoward about something, you express it in a positive and appropriate manner. Next, we also have here a channel or system of communication. The means of transmitting information between a sender and a receiver is one of the most important factors to affect the communication process. Say for example, through online kayo nag-uusap-usap, let's say Google Meet or through telephone conversation. Okay, going back, or through telephone conversation. So imagine nyo na lang kung walang signal. Syempre, nagkakaroon ng tinatawag natin na communication gap. Because, for example, static yung internet connection, maaring nahati-hati na lang yung message na nakakarating doon sa receiver. That way, mali yung message na kanyang natanggap. And then, there exists already a communication gap. So, those are the different factors or concepts about communication gap. Now, we have here the 7 steps that can prevent communication gaps. So, ito yung mga procedures na pwede nating gawin in order for us to avoid communication gap. Because if there is communication gap between the speaker and the listener, of course, effective communication will not take place. The first one here is be focused. So, whenever you're speaking to someone or listening to anyone talking, you have to be focused. Message should be very clear to the reader. The intended meaning should be vividly conveyed. So when we say vividly conveyed, that means it's clearly conveyed. So when we say be focused, it's actually asking for your attention. So you give attention to the one speaking, especially if you are the direct receiver of the information. Next one, frame the message. What is this frame the message? Framing the message consists of simply stating upfront what you want to talk about and why. When we say upfront, you go direct to the point. This is done by telling the other person what the topic is and why you want to discuss it. When we say framing the message, kasi it's like you put a border and then like dito lang dapat siya magfo-focus, parang ganon. Ito lang yung kanyang scope, parang ganyan. And of course, you go direct to the point. That is framing the message. Next, use appropriate volume. Okay, there is also an appropriate volume in terms of communication. Kasi the highness or lowness of volume implies a meaning. There must be suitable number or volume of words to be used to deliver a message. So just tuned out at certain point, balance the volume of information and provide just enough information. The moment kasi that you deliver a message na as inconsistent na sobrang lakas, nakaka-disturb din yun sa comprehension nung listener. Kasi feeling nung nakikinig, ala, galit na galit ka. And, of course, do not do also yung pagiging monotonous na from the start up to the end, yun, maintain mo lang yung softness ng voice mo. So, there should be a balance in terms of volume. Next, avoid assumptions. Ayun, ito yung asumera. When explaining something to another person, you can't assume they know everything you know. To avoid this gap, you need to meet the person you are talking with where he or she is, rather than assuming he or she has a significant base of knowledge. Say, for example, when we say meet the person you are talking with where he or she is, parang you try to put on the shoe where the speaker is. Parang ilagay mo yung sitwasyon mo doon sa kung nasan siya. Ilagay mo yung personality mo sa personality niya. Say, for example, elementary level yung kanyang natapos, you are already a college graduate, pero tinawag siya na mag-speak about something na, about a practical skill, andun na siya yung nagsiseminar sa inyo. So, wag kang mag-assume na yung marireach niya yung level mo. Kasi you are already a college graduate, since the frame of the message is only on the practical skill. Magtuturo siya about welding, ganyan. Ang kanyang basis ay yung experiences lang naman niya. Wala siyang technological knowledge. Ang meron lang sa kanya ay procedural knowledge. So, wag kang mag-assume na, if I ask this question, masasagot niya. And at the same time, kapag hindi niya nasagot yung question mo, do not be do not insult him or her. Next is check for comprehension. The easiest approach is to stop at a certain intervals in the conversation and simply ask if they understand. So, ito yung usual na ginagawa ng mga teachers, like, say for example, they are discussing several chapters of a novel or several procedures in kung paano magluto ng isang recipe. So, kapag katapos nilang mag-discuss ng 3 procedures, titigil sila doon at a certain interval, sabi niya, para itanong yung kanyang mga listeners or yung kanyang klase, naintindihan nyo ba? Nakakasunod ba kayo? Are there any questions? So, that is also a good strategy para ma-avoid po natin yung tinatawag natin na communication gap. Next is use the right medium. The medium you choose will depend on how well you know the person, the urgency of the message, the sensitivity of the subject matter before you act, consider your audience, the topic, the timing, the dynamics involved, so you can select the best medium for that particular situation. When you say medium kasi, it's the language that you will be using. So, in choosing the language na gagamitin mo, you have to consider, can these people understand me pag ito yung gagamitin ko? Or nakaka-relate ba yung mga audience ko if I use these examples? Or kung ito yung situation, makaka-concentrate ba sila? So, you ask yourself those questions in order for you to choose the right medium. And then 7 is wrap it up. So, this is very important because one way to avoid illusion of communication is to end with a short summary. Especially kung nagsalita ka ng 1 hour and then yung mga listeners mo parang ang dami-dami ng corners, ang dami ng napuntahan nung kanilang isip. You have to wrap it up. When you say wrap it up, you have to summarize what you have talked about, kasi maraming mga listeners na sakalang nila maiintindihan yung information na kino-convey mo the moment na nag-wrap up ka na ng ng points mo. So, how do you wrap up? It's either you repeat the main points, you clarify the next steps, or pwede ring reiterate agreements. Now, we have here the 4 ways to close the communication gap. Because even if we have 7 ways on how to avoid it, sometimes they can be unavoidable. So, hindi natin sila maiwasan. But if it already exists, ano yung pwede natin gawin? The first one is state your intention. Before you start into an interaction, think about what it is you want to achieve from the conversation or discussion. So, it's very natural na baka mamaya hindi tayo magkaintindihan. So, may mga taong ganon. Bago sila magkaroon ng conversation about their topic, sinasabi na nila na, magkikipag-usap ako sa'yo because this is the purpose. So, kailangan, kung meron man akong masabi, kailangan hindi ka magagalit because my purpose is just to help you. So, kailangan sinasabi mo na yung intention mo kasi baka mamaya, may mga tao nang ganun because nagbe-base na sila sa experience nila na last time nag-away sila because there was communication gap. Next, number 2, truly listen. To truly listen, we need to be mindful of the moment we are in, not the moment that is coming next. So, kailangan sumasabay tayo doon sa speed nung speaker. On the other hand, if we know the person has taken the time and effort to listen to understand our position, then we feel valued and respected. The moment kasi that you are speaking and you feel like your listeners are not sincerely listening to you, it's very embarrassing. And that's also a factor of communication gap. So in order for you to close that communication gap, you have to show to the speaker that you are truly listening. You are sincerely receiving those words or information. Next one is summarize for understanding. So just like what I have said a while back, you wrap it up and then put yourself in the other person's shoes. So that is empathy. Next one, we also have here taking minutes during meeting. This is already lesson 1 for chapter 9. So, recording minutes in any form of meeting is essential to all organizations. So, this is a work of secretaries or anyone who attends meeting. And then the written document, we call it the record or the minutes of the meeting. So, what is minutes? Meeting minutes or MOM can be defined as written record of everything that has happened during a meeting. So, you can obtain data there such as who attended the meeting, what transpired during the meeting, what was the agreement, parang ganon. Yun yung mga makikita mo doon sa minutes of the meeting. And another thing is, they are also used to inform people who did not attend the meeting about what happened or to keep track of what was decided during the meeting. So, because many people tend to forget kung ano yung nag-transpire during the meeting. And itong minutes of the meeting dito, they try to read it back so that, ito pala yung napag-meetingan namin. Now, the following should be included in the minutes of the meeting. We have the venue, the date and the time, the participants, topics discussed, materials distributed, resolutions, conclusion. So, yun po yung mga dapat na maging laman ng ating minutes of the meeting. I'll repeat, kailangan nandun yung venue, date and time. So, yun yung una mong ilalagay. Yung meeting ay sa Cagayan State University, Lalo, on May 16 at 2:30 p.m. Parang ganon. Participants are faculty and staff. Topics discussed, yung implementation of online classes, materials distributed, ano yung mga binigay, mga pamphlets, resolutions, ano yung mga agreement, and then conclusion, what was the final decision. Now, there are 5 steps that you must include. We have the pre-planning, the record-taking, minutes writing, distributing, filing and storage of minutes, and of course, on these steps, you have to note that the format, style, and content requirements for minutes of meeting varies depending on the organization and type of committee or board. Now, what are the tips that might help in your note-taking? So, parang yung taking down minutes of meeting kasi it's just like note-taking. The first thing that you have to do is to create an outline para the moment na ikaw ay magte-take note na ng kanilang pinag-uusapan, it will be easier. And then check off attendees as they enter the room. Hindi yung saka ka lang mag-check kapag ka nag-start na yung meeting. And then record decisions or notes on action items. And then ask for clarification if necessary, especially if you are the secretary. Excuse me, sir and ma'am, may I just clarify kung tama po yung aking nasulat, something like that. Don't try to capture it all. Okay, so pwede ka na lang mag-asterisk doon, hindi yung every word nung speaker or nung host nung meeting ay isusulat mo, and the next record it. So if you have a device na pwede mong gamitin to record it, that is way better. Para at least hindi pwede mong pakinggan and then you could rewrite the minutes of the meeting. So, it's a sample template for taking down notes of meetings. So, nakikita nyo dyan, company name, organization or department. Yan yung date, time, and venue. When we say facilitator, siya yung host ng meeting. Approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Agenda, when we say agenda, ito yung mga topic, attendees. We have here the participants. And then absentees, pwede nyo kung may excuse letters, you write there the reason, and then discussion and action. Time adjourned, kailan nagtapos? Okay, we also have here another sample. It is less detailed. Ayan. Okay. So, that is all about taking minutes during meetings. So, after listening to this, you have to summarize it again in your notebook. And of course, you indicate your name on the upper right corner, sending it in our group chat. That will serve as your activity already because I will not give you any more activities on this. Oh, but of course, you have to actually frequently visit the lens because I might be thinking of uploading an activity. Thank you so much and good day everyone.